serious to for Clem to shine as well. We need RagnaroK to really show up at his best. And he is here for Alpha X, the red Zerg player, RagnaroK.
And his opponent in the northwest position, the blue Terran representing Team Liquid, he is Clem.
Very, very cool, very powerful. All right, so this is an interesting map to start. Nate, I think that in Korea, players will most often take the what appears to be the normal third, where the Overlord is going by just about now, where the second Overlord is passing by. However, in Europe, we've seen a trend instituted by Lambo and Elaser, I think, to take the forward third to make it easier to creep spread, and then opening the map up with rocks. That's another thing to take into account, I guess, in this particular matchup, and something that could come in very handy for RagnaroK is the map is choked up by a lot of rocks all over the place. The earlier you can open those up as Zerg, the more favorable the map becomes for you. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to play around with, I think, especially this map in particular, because you just have quite a few different ways that Terrans can want to play their strategies, right? Like whether you want to do a tank push and try to use the mineral wall to set yourself up to drop units over it, or if you want to go for even something like what we saw against Zest, I think, actually from Clem earlier, where you go for a block on the natural to try and force them to take and saturate a base that's a little bit more exposed, a bit more out on the map early on, in the hopes that you can catch them off guard with some like a Hellion run by and whatnot. Just because these maps, you know, usually the second base that you get is going to be designed to kind of be a funnel, right? Because it's right in front of your main base. That's the funnel. That's the passageway to get where you want to go, and you have to be able to protect that. So sometimes you see it get moved. Notice how this Reaper comes into the natural, but he's actually got a drone at the third that was waiting for the Reaper. So RagnaroK should not have his third deterred at all by this harassing force, although he will be able to get at least a Zergling or two for his trouble.
Yeah, not too bad from the Frenchman, who is going to be going very standard into those Hellions, as he is adding a reactor onto the barracks, no doubt, to swap it with the factory. So for RagnaroK, it's going to be about the creep spread. I find Hellions, especially given the base that RagnaroK has taken, are very difficult to make work on ram buys and stuff like that, because it is such a choky map where you have to go up ramps. And also denying creep spread can be a little bit troublesome in the sense that you can deny creep spread at the front, but if you want to deny creep spread from the back, it's a very, very far place to go, right? For those Hellions, they have to go all the way around because of all the chokes and whatnot that we've been talking about. So we'll see what Clem is able to do. RagnaroK had amazing creep spread just a couple of games ago, so that is what he's going to be looking to replicate.
Yeah, and hey, he's already made at least one smart play, right? With the way he moved the drone out, got the third base up. So I like that RagnaroK's coming into this game with a little bit of a plan. He's thought about how he's going to do this. And I will say, on the side of Clem, his build's really not that different from what TY was doing, right? The turbo CC, he's got that crazy fast third. He's moving into the starport, except what we're not getting from Clem that TY was bringing a lot of was the Hellbat pressure, right? He's just got that extra racks a little bit earlier. He's building his starport. He's building the reactor. He wants to turn this into a crazy fast, like a turbo CC into a delayed 2-1-1, basically, is what this becomes then?
Yeah, something like that, I think, with very low number of Hellions, which I like because, again, it is so very difficult to find value from those Hellions, but he has shown them. So the 2-1-1 type move will not be necessarily expected, and it's going to be actually Hellbats to push along with that. So Hellion production is going to continue. The armory is going to sync up nicely. And while it is going to be delayed, it's also going to hit with something like 4 or maybe 6 even Hellbats. So nifty. If there's no Banelings out, which the Baneling nest just went down, so that's good news for RagnaroK. But if they're not started or already morphed by the time Clem crosses the map, things could get very dicey for him.
Yeah, you need to make sure that you have the splash damage to deal with those units. And I think the other reason why Clem is such a lauded player, is why he has so many fans, is not just because he's good, but the things that make him good are very fun to watch. And yeah. I think you'll all possibly get to see a demonstration of that if we get Banelings in time here as the attack reaches, and Banelings do begin morphing. But there are very few Terran players you're going to see that are better at targeting down the Banelings of the Zerg player. Now, this is the ultimate opportunity for me to step on a rake and see RagnaroK find some footing in this series, as a ton of Lings are going to come out.
Yeah, this is a lot, but the Marines actually ran out of creep. And with that, the Banelings have to settle for a lot of the Hellbats at the front. But yeah, I mean, this is not too bad for RagnaroK all in all. That could have been a little bit better, but Clem ran non-stop. He did not stop to shoot with those Marines. It is so tempting for any Terran player to do that. But his priority was, I gotta get out of creep. So stims just to run as fast as possible out of creep. Beautiful moves.
Yeah, difficult moves. The other thing that about this situation that we should keep in mind is that Clem, with his crazy fast third, he's already landed it and he's mining off of it. So RagnaroK couldn't build a fourth base while he was preparing for that big attack because A, he's investing money into the defense, and B, you know, that the place where he has taken his fourth was in the direct path of aforementioned attack. So with that being said, Clem checks the bottom base, sees nothing is there. Highly likely his next move is either going to be a drop or he's going to try and make some sort of push onto that fourth base. So RagnaroK needs to keep moving that creep out. He did immediately rebuild the creep tumors by that base. So as long as he gets that next wave out and he keeps pushing it, he can give himself the room that he needs to stay alive. But I wonder if he waited a little long to kill these rocks.
Yeah, I mean, those Zerglings have definitely been idle, so there's definitely wasted potential. You could say those rocks could be down. The bigger rocks even perhaps could be down. But yeah, and Clem, I mean, making sure that he takes advantage of the fact that they're not by kind of abusing this choke, right? Like, if the units were to clash, there's no doubt that RagnaroK in a straight-up engagement would take this. But the way that Clem is using the terrain is brilliant, and the chokes are really going to favor him, especially now with those mines coming into play.
Yeah, like this. Ouch. Targets the mine onto a lower HP queen, so it doesn't get dated by a single Ling. One Widow mine does blow up some Lings headed to that third, and there's actually a Hellbat. Is this the Hellbat chilling there?
Oh my god. I absolutely love that. I mean, if you have Hellbats available, everyone should honestly do that. Just leave a Hellbat or two at each base. It is the best, most cost-efficient way to deal with counter-harassment, unless it includes a lot of Banelings or something like that, in which case you just have to evacuate anyway. But yeah.
Hey, solid hold on the fourth so far, though.
Well done.
He's been trading out some Ling Bane for some of this bio, but nothing really terrible has happened yet. And it feels like a weird thing to say, but watching when you watch Clem play, you'll see players die a couple of minutes ago already against some of these builds and setups that he has. But RagnaroK has been incredibly on top of everything that's been going on. Overseer drags through the army in case there's Widow Mines burrowed underneath. However, you don't want to lose all of your Overseers because these Widow Mines, they are invisible after they shoot. So the armory gives them that cloak.
Ooh, very daring moves from Clem here, moving deep onto creep, but there aren't enough Banes and they're trickling in. You mentioned the target fire. I mean, Clem didn't even have to. The Banes were trickling in and he just knew to stand his ground, and that is equally impressive of a maneuver from him, to be honest. He just knows this unit so very well. He's making them work. Now, it has to be mentioned, this... Oh! Nice.
All the Banelings are gone?
Yeah, exactly. And these mines are made for those Banelings and those Lings. They do not fare well against Hydra compositions because they can be cleared out from a distance. So instead, Clem is now switching onto tank production, which I absolutely love, and just making 2 mines at a time from the reactor factory that he has. So he has swapped on production from his main factory onto tanks. And this is going to be a way scarier siege. Those tanks are sieging next to the rock, so they cannot be flanked easily. And this is a very good position for the Frenchman.
Yeah, without a heaping amount of Banelings, Marines can kill almost, Marines can kill everything that Zerg can make, like in this situation, fairly easily. And with 2 tanks to back them up, the few Banes that get close are not quite able to hit Paydirt. He is going to extend out now with the Hydras onto where those siege tanks are. One of them does get freed of the Zergling harass, but the rest of the tanks cleaned up. Still some mines left behind, though. And that's the kind of thing that I'm always trying to keep my eyes on, cats. those are the mines that can end up having the most damage, the ones that are left somewhere that a fight isn't happening anymore.
Most definitely. And a little bit uncharacteristically sloppy, that last siege from Clem, right? Not having his units and trading out of range of the siege tanks. He wasn't even trying to bait. He thought that he had better trades perhaps, or focused a little bit too much on focus firing those banelings to minimize damage to his army, but he was definitely a little bit too deep. Will he falter again in this same regard? This siege is so annoying because there's tanks and mines in the back. So let's see. RagnaroK now choosing to go for it.
It's a great anchor point for the army. The siege tank was not shooting at the Hydralisks during that fight, and the Hydras, they do outrange the Marines. They don't have the stim, they don't have the medevacs, but they have a little bit more of punch in those slower individual shots. So you do need to have a good amount of supply to overwhelm a Zerg who's using Hydralisks, and if you don't do that in time,
Lurkers.
well, then the Lurkers come out, and that is where the Zerg player finally is able to get some power back in this matchup, and that's where you start to see them try to get out on the map. But it's not all roses just yet. The Lurkers on their own aren't enough. You need the hive tech upgrades for them to really do their job.
I almost feel like the way that their army was set up, RagnaroK could have ran on forward, but perhaps he didn't want to engage without those lurkers as they are so very expensive and so very powerful. Clem has scanned this base, so he knows where to send the Liberator, but there's already a Sporga that's going to take care of it without Clem noticing. At the front, the Hydras are trying to move on forward and pick up whatever they can, but as the tank sieges, they are forced back now into the protection of his lurkers.
Yo, RagnaroK's playing a pretty good game here.
Oh, an amazing game.
RagnaroK is playing a hell of a game, and there is a planetary for the 4th base, but he continues to shark around, looking for windows of opportunity. I think the only reason he hasn't really hit Pater has just been because Clem has left so many mines behind inside of his base for those run-bys.
This is big from RagnaroK, coming from every angle. Nate actually is going to get a giant sandwich. You can't split if you are within. So, yeah, it's going to be a beautiful cleanup from RagnaroK. Does not want to overextend out of creep, but at the same time, he needs to be gaining some space if he's ever to be aggressive with his lurkers. So, otherwise, I mean, this game can extend that, and it is not like, you know, olden times CVT, where if the game is extending, the Terran is kind of just slowly dying. It's much more even, I think, these days, and a lot of people would even go as far as to say that Terran has the tools to take late game Zerg. I'm not sure how you feel about that, though, Nate.
No, I completely agree. The setups that these players have been going for give them a lot more opportunity to get work done. Because I think the biggest trend over the last few years with all that, as he does grab that mule. But I thought the biggest trend was the rise and the proliferation of those big. Oh my god, that mine! If it had hit the bane.
Yeah, it did hit like a few banes.
But yeah, I guess to try to quickly get to my point. The Zergling run-bys and whatnot were a real problem, but Clem has been bulletproof, and Lings have gotten into his base. He just has such a good setup that he's been able to defend against this with, and that's just the way that it always is with any game with anything, right? You have a method where Zergs are like, oh, these mass run-bys, these do really well. Over time, eventually, you know, that's why we say you learn through losing, right? Eventually, you play versus something enough until you're able to find a version of what you want to do that actually works against it. Now, I'm not going to say that it's going to be super easy for him to break entrenched lurkers once they have, you know, seismic spines, which they have, and adaptive talons, which they're about to have, but keeping the mobility and eating the map the way that he's been are how you're going to be able to deal with that, being cost effective, but also trying to gather more resources than a slow Zerg who's playing with a siege style army.
Most definitely. I mean, he's keeping control of the middle of the map. That is the main avenues that will lead to all of his bases. That is where, if you have control of the map as a Zerg player, you can choose to go and siege any one of the Terran areas. And there you are super powerful with lurkers, because lurkers, the problem is in dislodging them. These ghosts are going to provide value to Clem, though, if RagnaroK can't apply enough pressure, if he can't dislodge this area. So Clem is very comfortably situating himself little by little, kind of a Thorsane vibes here, Nate.
Yeah, just blew up one of his own tanks, it looked like. The ghost situation gets a bit tricky with the lurkers, and this was a part of why so many Terrans struggled against it initially. The lurker with the range upgrade has the same attack range as the spellcast range for the ghost snipe. So what that means is, if the ghost goes out by itself like that, you see the lurker can always cancel the attack of the ghost, because if the ghost receives damage, the snipe is canceled. If you go with a bunch of ghosts, then some of them get canceled, and then the rest of them are usually able to snipe and kill the lurkers. But you can't just walk your ghosts forward with 0 risk and snipe lurkers anymore. So that's the biggest thing that players need to keep in mind as these Vipers come from behind the Blinding Cloud, the siege tank.
Wow. Absolutely beautiful engagement from RagnaroK. All of the tanks have been neutralized using that high ground and the vision to his advantage. The Banelings are still on the chase. The Lynx not running forward to stop the army from moving, and Clem will successfully retreat to a planetary fortress that will get blasted by this number of Banelings at this point in time. However, this is heavy losses for RagnaroK. He realizes that now it's defense time. He has taken one of the crucial bases of Clem, but at the same time, Clem has done such a great job of expanding elsewhere that his economy is still just fine.
I was gonna say, Clem's army is still really scary, and RagnaroK, as great as an attack like that is, you always have to be mindful of where the resources are going, because those Banelings, as great as they are, doing their job means dying. So you have to have something in the pipeline that's going to be able to replace them, whether it's going for more Banelings, can you get enough lurkers? Based on what we've seen off of the production tab and the way that RagnaroK's rebuilt himself in the last minute, he did a phenomenal job. He's got a bunch of lurkers back up again. He was knocked down to just 2 lurkers and 8 hydras, by the way. So he turned all 8 hydras into lurkers, rebuilt some of the hydralisks, had plenty of his 60 lings left over after the fight, turned a bunch of those into Banes. So RagnaroK finds himself with still plenty of tools to use, and these lurkers are just going to charge straight up into the face of the Terran army to try and burrow underneath it.
Yeah, but there doesn't seem to be enough of a follow-up. Those ghosts struggle to run away, but there's not much to run away from. And they can certainly run away from lurkers without support. And with this, Clem is looking to trade pretty decently and getting a little bit of a supply advantage here. I would have much rather RagnaroK siege the area that is all creeped up. There is still a base there with the Rich Vespene Geyser. I think that should be the natural move for him right now. That base is more or less surrounded by creep. The middle is just completely void of creep. So I'm not sure if that's the place to go, but it is definitely an important area to control.
I'm glad we hyped this matchup so much, Cats, because this
is wonderful.
This first game has been freaking awesome. It's also it's so fun to be here in 2021, still talking about freaking awesome StarCraft games and getting fantastic matches with these guys. It's just next level. This is why we were talking up RagnaroK before as well, because he's really been bringing the fight to Clem in this series, but he's finally been broken at long last. And I think you said it all there in that final fight, right before the GG, Cats, is that he was bringing everything, but at some point Clem just kind of stopped and realized there's not enough support for the lurkers. The lurkers on their own are kind of like tanks. You need to have something there that keeps them safe, because they can be overwhelmed even with that splash damage, and that's what happened. Losing all 8 lurkers there was not going to be the way to move forward, but really well done. Game 1 victory for Clem.
Yeah, I think instead if he takes those same 8 lurkers with the army that he has and sieges right on top of that planetary fortress, then it's on your opponent to try and kill you and try to get you out of that position, or to lose a base, right? So I think that was the safer call given the creep spread that RagnaroK had, but no less an amazing game 1. Looking forward to the rest of the series. I mean, RagnaroK played a very impressive game, and he played a game that was a very confident game, right? Like, he always had enough units. He sometimes even more or less overmade units to where it felt to me like Clem was getting a little bit ahead economically, or just if he held and he held his composure, and that's what he did at the very start of the game, he would continue to get ahead. But eventually it paid off, because RagnaroK just flooded and was able to reset Clem a couple of times. I think also another crucial moment was when the Ling Bane, there was tons of it, just chasing so much bio. The bio stims and runs all the way back to the PF. I feel like there was an opportunity for RagnaroK to run on forward with the Zerglings, get us around and stop that from happening. Once Clem gets to the PF, it's kind of like a safe zone. Yes, RagnaroK kills the PF, but you know, who cares? Clem has like another 2 bases to mine anyway.
Yeah, and you know, when you talk about that, I think back to when the Lings got inside of his base too. He had the mine set up. He had that Hellbat in that one spot, and I am still just scarred in my brain. When I see the Lings headed towards the SCV line, and I know that all hell's about to break loose, Terran's going to lose all their workers. They're going to feel compelled to stim an A move into the Zerg on creep, die a horrible, painful death, and then go cry about it on the Battle.net forums. But that didn't happen today. Instead, we saw him take a stand against that, and just really, really well done. The way that he eats the map is, as a Terran, it's just very weird. He basically zergs with his expos.
Yeah, he really does.
And throws units at you until you die. And that is this man in the top left leading 1-0, Team Liquid's Clem.
With an impressive display, but just barely not enough to perhaps face the best TVC in the world, can the underdog even things out? It is Alpha X's RagnaroK. His last chance, Nate.
The last chance.
Right. Maybe second to last chance. I guess he has two last chances, right?
I don't know. You know, the great thing about it is context. Context defines everything, right? Mm-hmm. So as long as we keep that in mind, we can just, the context of this series, you could say that this is his last chance if he loses, right? And then if he wins this game, then it's still his last chance. So.
Yeah, it's his last chance to make it to a game 3 for sure. We can say that much.
Yeah, or he could just use video game logic. Sometimes you have to go through the whole area, like when you die in Dark Souls, right? He just has he has no lives left. That's all. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes, you know, your last chance is really your last chance. But
and sometimes it's just, yeah, exactly. And then sometimes you can interpret it differently, what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. So like most people would say, what is the player's last chance here in the DreamHack Last Chance tournament? And most people would say, you know, it's whatever they want to make it. It's there's all sorts of last chances going.
Everybody's fighting for something different.
Exactly.
Guts, glory. It's your last chance to win a tournament before, you know, as somebody realizes how much money is on the line for the world championship and is like, okay, now I'm going to go Super Saiyan, right?
It's your last chance to win the first tournament of 2021, which is a new decade, by the way. So it's a big deal.
That's true. That's true. Who's going to be the first champion of 2021? It won't be the world champion. Not yet. We've got one last chance before that happens. And don't worry, guys. I won't be casting again until Saturday, so you won't have to hear me saying last chance over and over all week.
Same. Well, I won't be casting until Sunday, so yeah, you'll definitely be spared of last chances. Though I don't think so, right? Like you were saying, context is important, Nate. I'm not sure how anyone escapes the context of there being a last chance in the name of the tournament.
That's true. That's very true. And that in and of itself completely justifies any and all spam of the name of the tournament. It's for the brand. It's for the brand.
It is for the brand. All right. So very cautious creep spread there by RagnaroK, not going quite to the edge, giving Clem a lot of credit. So he's gonna spread creep halfway through instead with that one tumor in order to continue to spread it. I like it. Diligent. It's what you want to see. Confident, right? It's like no risks.
Yeah. And hey, Clem has been playing so greedy. Link speed finishing. A Roach Warren is being built, cats. And I know that we've talked about Clem like he is literally the most expensive steak you can get on Earth. But
right.
I have a feeling that RagnaroK may have come here to order something else, perhaps a little steak and cheese.
Yeah, but up against the Banshee, I mean, that is the last thing that you want to see, though it has worked in the past, even today, right? Like the Roach Rambai could very well work if... actually, it didn't work in this matchup today. It was scouted, the previous one. So yeah, I mean, the Banshee is just has to spot it, or Clem has to catch wind that there is a Roach Warren, or RagnaroK has to go something else, because otherwise, Nate, I love the Banshee decision, and I don't know how RagnaroK's gonna make this a game.
Yeah, I Banshees are in, like, whenever I look at them, I don't like making Banshees in TVZ because I love dying to stuff like this, but when you see a pro in an important match, when you're like, I really just want to make sure that I can play my A game and not have to worry about too many different kinds of things. Building a couple Banshees is never a bad move, because at the very worst, your opponent went like mutas or something and you can try to use it to buy time. I don't know. But when you're in a situation like this, where you've got Ravagers being made outside your base and there's about to be a Ling Roach flood, that's when you're really happy to have a couple of units that can't be hit by these. Now, I wonder if he's too far on the map, though, because that Banshee is
way far
in RagnaroK's base. Yeah, that's as far as it really can be.
It really is. There's only one. I don't know if there's a second one on the way, but yeah, there it is. And RagnaroK has made successfully his way through without being spotted. And I think this is just gonna work, Nate. In spite of there being 2 Banshees, this was not spotted at all. And now RagnaroK with a brilliant siege here onto Clem's production and economy. It's not gonna be easy to dislodge. And even if it is cleaned up, too much, I think, has been lost already.
Yeah, it's up to 10 worker difference now, and of course we harken back to 3 command centers in a dream. But man, if you're trying to dream through this, you're on Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, I've got bad news for you. This is one you're gonna wish you could wake up from, because 24 workers getting killed, 29 to 42 now is the count. And that is just pain. And it's not over. Yeah, the Lings are still here. They're going for the add-ons. They're getting the depots. Sees, oh, hey, fresh mule. A couple more SCVs that are already low on health. Don't mind
great targeting
if I do.
Yeah, and total of 28 SCVs. A lot of disruption to the mining. Clem is alive on the bright side of things for him, and he does have 3 CCs. I feel like if a Roach had stayed back to make sure that those depots couldn't be lifted, instead of morphing a Ravager on top of those depots instead of in the back, right? Then he makes way for all of those Zerglings to get in right away. Whereas this way Clem was repairing and he was doing damage to those Zerglings for so long, and they didn't get in for so long. I think that could have been game defining right there, if RagnaroK had the presence of mind to morph the Ravagers on top of the supply depots to make sure that the Zerglings went through. However, as it is, he has gained an advantage. Behind this, he was droning up. There were no Ling reinforcements made. There was no overcommitment. So RagnaroK's still in a very comfortable position.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where we're just going to have to see if Clem can pull some magic out of his hat. Because a typical expectation from something like this is the Spire. As you've built a bunch of Banshees to defend yourself, and the Zerg player does not want you to be able to use that in a meaningful way outside of that specific defense, but gets a couple of drones here and there, and we're looking at, what is this? So now 41 to 61, 3 orbital commands. So rebuilding those SCVs is not impossible, but the time that it's going to take to get any sort of semblance of a real push going is still a bitter memory from games gone by, as 1-1 has started for both players, but those extra 2 barracks are just now getting underway. I would like to see, save the Banshees. I always love seeing when people park like 2 Banshees on top of where the 4th base is going to go, you know what I mean? And just kind of try to shut that down, but since the creep spread usually doesn't get pushed over there, case in point being 4th base location, no creep spread really. Banshee is here, but if there were 2, it would have been easy cancel.
Most definitely. I think maybe the reasoning that Clem is going with is he feels like he took a lot more damage than he can afford to, so maybe he's looking for as much damage.
He feels
as
like he
can
has to.
Yeah,
exactly.
No. Yeah, so it's kind of like
it's easy for me to stay watching. Yeah, I
agree with you completely. Like that's the kind of move that will guarantee you some value, but Clem needs a little bit more than some. And these Lings are gonna make their way in. The upgrades are still decent for Clem. He hasn't fallen too far behind on that front. Now, silver lining for the Frenchman is that RagnaroK has not been able to creep spread very well out of this. And his solution to that is going to be to go for Mutalisks. They are units that are going to be able to grant him map control regardless almost of the amount of creep spread out there. And going to be able to clear this Medivacs. Oh! Just like that.
He flew straight into it. Yeah, that's...
Oh, nice. Very nice moves.
Yeah,
again, expert moves. Those Muta were not targeting the Medivac by design, right? Like, because they were targeting the Marines as they unloaded. So, like, you could think, oh, isn't it better to target the Medivac? Because I thought maybe just retreat with those Mutas, because it's so tempting to target the Medivac, but RagnaroK just killing one unit at a time, identifying that he can do that with the Mutas, even in these small numbers. And now he has, like I was saying, map control. This will grant him the ability to spread creep. and kind of just situate himself in a comfortable position.
Yeah, so all things coming up, aces for the Zerg player in this second map. RagnaroK really showing and stretching, flexing that macro muscle after that big attack was brought in. Now, Clem has gotten up to a serviceable number of workers. His economy is actually moving now, but here comes the point in time where he has to, with, I'm going to say, probably not as many units as he normally wants to have by this time in the game. He's going to have to try and claw out that fourth base, find a way to put pressure on, and defend the mutas all at the same time. Because if he just sits back and tries to just power up, like, you know, like take 2 or 3 Dragon Ball episodes worth of time, then RagnaroK's just going to be like, okay, welcome to my world where I have 8 bases, lurkers with all of the upgrades, and, you know, vipers with gold-plated tongue things they used to abduct with.
Yes, indeed.
That's not the world I want to be in.
Oh, most definitely not. Yeah, and it's gonna be difficult, I think, for Clem, increasingly so, because he finally gets the Widowmine started. Actually, the Widowmine upgrade, because he has been producing tanks. Personally, I love going Mutaling Bane against tank compositions, right? Like, the tanks are gonna be good to focus fire big clumps of Banes, but when you overwhelm with Mutas and Links, then all of a sudden your win condition can just become clearing out the Marines, and the more tanks you're making, the less anti-air you're making at the same time. So it's very good for Clem to identify that he needs to switch on to mines quickly, and he is getting the upgrade, but he has not started mine production. So I'm curious to see how this all works out. I love RagnaroK's position as of now.
Yeah, compare this to the last game when he had a second factory finishing as he was going into the Drilling Claw mines and Thors with his first push, with his first move out. He was already going there. Although we didn't really see Thors in the last game because it was not a Mutalist game, not a real one anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that is also nice for Clem, even though he is now adding the Thor and will soon to be adding the mines, I assume, is that RagnaroK didn't really overcommit to Muta, right? Like, he overcommitted, or he committed mostly to the ground. So this Muta force, I mean, it's kind of big enough to be threatening to move out and to kind of clear medevacs on the map, but it's not threatening enough to actually go and hurt the economy, kill turrets, and really cause much havoc on the other side of the map. So I think I would have preferred, given the tank tank transition from Clem, for RagnaroK to continue to produce Mutas, because these guys are just not finding much value. I'd rather them be less Corruptors and do the same thing.
Yeah, hasn't been able to really do too much with that, much to the benefit of Clem. I think a big fear here, though, is if your army moves out and those Banelings try to just go in and smite that planetary fortress, that's always going to be one of the most terrifying things that can happen, because there's a tank with this PF and the wall looks nice, but I think that might just be too many Banelings, Cats. Even with the tank, you can't save this.
Most definitely not, and they're actually gonna collapse onto a lot of the SCVs as well, as Clem doesn't bother to split, and 2 mines suffering there too, and those are crucial actually to the army composition of Clem. Those mines could really turn the fight around, so they are not too dismissible for him right now, and losing that 4th base, that is pretty huge. I think that we're gonna see more of this from RagnaroK, who is now transitioning into Ultralisks, so he's happy trading this type of army, remaxing on Ultras for a counterattack. And that is probably what he thinks his win condition is right now. Love this counterattacks.
Yeah, these are huge lane counterattack hitting that top base. Command center's gone again. This hatchery gets denied, and this one on the right side, killing that would be another step in progress, but only on 3 bases. We know in late game for Terran, that turns this into a one-punch army. He's going to have a single opportunity to throw a haymaker and try to just completely KO RagnaroK, but man, the Zerg player has just been so on top of everything. Gonna shoo these Marines away. Doesn't even need to push into that army. And if you're RagnaroK, you've got 4,000 minerals, 2,000 gas, you're maxed out, you've eaten the entire map. All you're really thinking to yourself is, okay, he should probably not be able to rebuild an army if I kill the whole entire thing. So Clem is not gonna try and slow the game down. He wants to still move out and push.
Yeah, and RagnaroK is doing well to slow him down. He has huge armies now out on the map. Ling Bane and some Muta to clear out any stray away units. I'm not sure that he should look to defend this base. Clem is as well situated as he could possibly be. I wouldn't mind a counterattack and just conceding this position. And it looks like that's what RagnaroK is going to choose to do. I love it. And instead, he instantly drops a hatchery on the other side and goes for the giant counterattack. Be careful not to blow up like half your banelings onto that CC, but instead he's going to find all of the SCVs. Whoa, beautiful.
Bye, little Sebastian. Ooh, that hurts. That one hurts, cats. And that's an orbital gone, which means obviously we talk about things like scanning for information or depot drops, but he needs those mules. That economy, 44 SCVs is a number of that. With 3 orbitals, we could say, okay, I could see something. 2 orbitals now, that's all he's got. And that third, the fourth position, which he floated his main to, is completely exposed to another run by as well.
Yeah, and he's gonna take advantage of it indeed as more banelings collapse to clean the remainder of Clem's army. I think we are witnessing the end as RagnaroK, with a very impressive performance, will take down the Wagyu Terra.
That's right, manages to grab himself that second map in this series, tying things up. So this is actually your last chance to do something before the final game of the day, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back with the conclusion of Clem versus RagnaroK. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, once again to the DreamHack Masters StarCraft Last Chance Tournament. I'm Nathanius, joined by Cats. And what's so fun, Cats, huh? What's so funny? Huh?
I don't know. You just say last chance exactly like I would expect you to say last chance every time. But I'm just like, yeah, that's Nate. That's
one day
brilliant. I love it.
One day I'll be a movie intro voice guy. You know,
I really hope so. Yeah.
One day we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm on Fiverr. Hit me up. We got Pillars of Gold for the final game of this best of 3, as we've got RagnaroK bringing it to Clem in game number 2. I won't lie, like I thought this was going to be a 2-0, not because I have any level of disrespect towards RagnaroK. He is like the ultimate wild card that will just randomly kick anybody's butt. But Clem is just that good, right? And I feel like it's almost disrespectful for me to be like, yeah, I think Clem's going to lose maps to someone that's not the best Zerg in the world, because he recently beat the best Zergs in the world multiple times, finally, right? So with that being said, this has been a very interesting series because RagnaroK has not broken easily. Even in the game that Clem did win, was not really, there were opportunities for him to be able to pull that out. So let's see what he does as we get into the final map of the day. In the bottom left, the red Zerg player from Team Rye, he is RagnaroK. Or I might have gotten that wrong. Alpha X, sorry.
And in the top right-hand side, playing for Team Liquid, I'm gonna butcher his real name right now. Clemando Panche! That's gotta be wrong. Clem.
If you shout it loudly, anime style like that, you can never be wrong.
That is
someone will just, there you go. Sometimes that is what it sounds like. That could just be Clem's anime intro. I'm good with that, cats. I think you did a great job.
Thank you, Nate. So it looks like both players are going to go pretty standard here, right? Hatch first against what looks to be a Reaper opening. Maybe the most standard for openings matchup. Sometimes we see something like a pull first. And that's about the only deviations that we see apart from things really out there like proxy hatches and stuff.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of unusual openings today, haven't we? Like we've had the pull first. We had RagnaroK do that against TY. We also had TY on this map, right? When he played RagnaroK on Pillars of Gold, that was the first map of their series. He went for a single Marine opening rather than the Reaper, and he didn't even SCV scout. So to me, against somebody who can cheese, period, this is why I don't ever win big, because I like to gamble a little more conservative side of things, where I'm like, okay, if I think this guy has a potential to be aggro, I'm gonna send the SCV to scout. Clem vindicates me. He is sending the SCV out. He wants to make sure that this Reaper does not end up costing him anything by being across the map when some lings arrive. But by sending the SCV in at this time, you see that the hatchery has finished at about the 2-minute mark. That's gonna tell you everything you need to know. For the hatchery to be done at that time, there can't really be anything else going on. So that means you can send the Reaper across, because the only way that lings could finish would be basically around the time that your Reaper gets there.
Yeah. However, there is a possibility that TY, I mean, you never can speak on behalf of players, but there is a possibility that if he wasn't playing the series already at that point, where he's playing 3D chess, at least the way that it worked out, not SCV scouting in the first on the first map, and just like the next map is what was cool, because he goes for the Banshee and he scouts for the all-in that would punish him in this first game, basically, right? So it's almost like baiting RagnaroK at that point. TY was, where he's like, I didn't scout, right? If you had all-in, then I would have died. And then in the second game, he just accounts for the all-in that RagnaroK might have thought, if I had all-in, he would have just died. I should all-in, and yeah. So yeah, TY is I think that type of player that is really playing the series from the beginning and not just the game that he's in. But yeah, I mean, this is all on the line. This is not the first game of the series. It's definitely the last chance for either of these players to move further into the tournament. It's going to be difficult for both. And again, with that very conservative creep tumor is RagnaroK. He seems to be very confident in this matchup and his playstyle.
Oh yeah, and I like it. Like I said, I think we talked about this today.
Oh, wow!
Word of the day for today's broadcast, other than last chance, obviously, is confidence. Right? You see some confident plays. Some, there's been very little, and I'm going to applaud all 4 players in today's group for this. Very little in the way of, tappy toes type gameplay. Nobody's like, oh, is the water hot? I'm scared. No. These guys show up and they're like, I don't care if this pool is 100C or 1C. I'm just jumping in. I'll freeze or burn. Regardless, I'm ready. We got to go. We got to get it done. And that's been the most exciting part. It's just been a lot of very committed types of attacks or builds or strategies, and very little in the way of like, oh, you know, will they, won't they? You know, it's a lot better than your average rom-com, to say the least.
Absolutely. Very decisive, the players have been, I would say. And yeah, I completely agree with you on that front. I think that they have really pushed on the envelope here and really committed to their attacks and their tactics. And there has been no stopping. I mean, the only game maybe where we saw kind of a little bit of hesitation was that ridiculous game between TY and Clem. If you didn't watch it, if you just woke up or something, you have to go and watch that. Game 3 between them was incredible. And there we saw Clem potentially making some mistakes, maybe some decisions that were a little bit slower than TY was making in under immense amounts of pressure and chaos. But of course, we are here now. And we see another Banshee, so very safe opening. One more time on the side of Clem.
Yeah, these Hellions looking for an avenue into the natural while the Queens get poked by the Banshee. And, you know, it's always one of those awkward situations. You don't have a Spore up front, but at the same time, you've got enough Queens and energy to transfuse through any Banshee damage. So Clem decides, hey, I'd rather save a bit of the hit points and the energy. The Banshees, with 2 of them, you can one-shot the drones, right? So at the very least, Hellions try to use the ground, poke and prod by that 3rd, send the Banshees into the main when you feel like you get an opportunity to one-shot some drones. But that's a pretty good setup RagnaroK has. Queen tucked in very neatly next to that Spore Crawler. So shouldn't take too much damage, but 3 drones is enough for now.
Yeah, at the same time, the Hellions are going to poke on forward and trade with some Zerglings, but not too many go down, and a little bit of HP is leveraged, so Clem has to be careful not to overcommit with those as he situates his 3rd. RagnaroK with a Muta responds once again, which seems to be his flavor of the day anyway, but it's going to help immensely. It's almost a requirement against Banshees.
Yeah, because it's just like, it's one of those things where... You know, we joke about this, but unless obviously you're doing some sort of weird cheese where you're bringing all of your Queens across the map, or an all-in, I guess. Zerg doesn't have a lot that shoots up early on in the game. So even though the Banshees are not like, you know, they're not battle cruisers, but you still kind of have to make some considerations in what you're doing to deal with them. But then, yeah, when you get the Spire, it's kind of a hand wave motion to get rid of them then. So we'll see how that goes. My brain was getting very distracted by the small blue icon inside of RagnaroK's main base. It's a changeling, but you know, when you look at the mini map constantly, it hurts. It hurts. I'm like, why is there a blue unit in his base? He's not fighting. It's not doing anything. Anyway, big siege up onto that 4th. There's a lot of Lings, not a lot of Banelings. No Bane speed yet either, cats.
Yeah, and RagnaroK doesn't know what's behind here. It's another tank. The Mutas are actually going to flank onto the other tank, and this is really good for RagnaroK. However, like you were saying, no Baneling speed. It's going to allow those tanks to get perfect targeting onto the Banelings, and now the Marines pushing on forward without a doubt. No hesitation has been the flavor of the day, and Clem definitely showing exactly just that. The Banshees overextending a little bit to where the Mutas pick off one of them, but without Baneling speed.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You're talking about the flavor, man. All I'm seeing is we've got the steak that bites back over here. Clem with a massive rally, a huge push, tons of damage being done, killing that 4th base, plenty of economy back home, 69 SCVs. He's just moving that economy along very nicely.
Yes, indeed. What a beautiful siege here from Clem. It was looking dire for a second there, but that really just prioritizing the siege tank fire. However, he's gonna get punished a little bit on the retreat. I love the target firing from RagnaroK, identifying that the 2nd tank was more efficient to target down, and that the first one that he was targeting would die from the glaives. So that's a little bit of damage, and potentially could have killed both tanks with that move. However, only ends up getting 1, and it's still dire straits for him.
Yeah, these Mutas are trying to hunt, and grabbing a medevac there. Very nice pickup. And RagnaroK taking 2 attributes at the same time while he sends his Link counterattack in, trying to get himself a little bit of a new lease on life. There were some Hellbats left behind, but actually not inside the mineral line. So the SCVs can't really get there to repair. And help, but the Lings are going to start to come out of that base. There's a decent amount of Banes, but look at the pre-split. This is exactly the kind of stuff Clem is known for. You are not getting efficient Baneling hits against this Terran player.
And this is looking like the beginning of the end. I mean, the creep has already been cleared here. RagnaroK trying to take advantage of whatever is left of it, but he is about to realize that his efforts are futile. And now Clem, he forced RagnaroK to look the other way to go and defend his fourth base, and in the process, the third is exposed. And yes, he will get pushed back, but he has a very clear line of reinforcement back into that third, and no doubt he's gonna continue to apply the pressure here.
Yeah, Banshee killed a couple of the Banelings too. No Overseer with those Mutalisks to get that out of the way. So every little pick here just having such a devastating impact. The Mutas are going to try to go across the map towards that fourth base. I think a turret will be finishing in just the nick of time, but I don't really think it's going to matter, especially when your upgrades get canceled, Cats. 2-2 is going to be done soon for Clem. RagnaroK's lost both of his Evo chambers. A drone accidentally came off to fight. And that's when you know, when the hive mind is sending your workers into battle, that's when you know there might be a couple of screws loose in the machine, as there's not a whole lot left here for our Zerg player to do. But man, he's put forth quite a valiant effort, hasn't he?
Yeah, he really played an amazing set of games today, really, but unfortunately for him, that's going to be the end of his run, as the expected victor of the series does win, but only just barely.